Look, I'll be honest, I don't have the notes in front of me right now. I don't have the dates, I don't have the times, but I can tell you I do have the facts. David Wilson, the criminologist, he's an emeritus professor. That means he's a retired professor from Birmingham University. Criminologist used to be a governor of a prison back in the day. I think he's like the youngest one ever or whatever. Anyhow, don't really matter. He's an idiot. His criminology is absolute crap. I'll tell you why. So, I was watching a documentary on Channel 4, and he was talking about a murderer. He was talking about a rapist, actually, real evil guy. And there was a girl that was up on a military base up in Scotland. I don't have the time and the place and the date. Sorry, haven't done any prep for this, and this off the dome, man. But anyhow, there was this girl that she was on the military base, and the wing commander, she was a Wren, yeah. So she was a female Royal Air Force girl. Anyway, the wing commander had said, "Can you babysit my child tonight?" And so she had an appointment to babysit the child. And anyhow, she went out. She wandered over to like the canteen in that evening, and no one really knows what happened after that. But either way, she vanished. And the thought was maybe someone came up and said, "Hey, I'm here. The wing commander sent me. Hop in. I'm here to take you to the wing commander's office, the wing commander's house, the wing commander's where the hell the wing commander lives in." Or maybe she just walked to wherever the wing commander lives. I don't think he lives on base. I think that much was clear. But whatever, she vanished. Okay. Now, David Wilson said, from looking at the post-mortem evidence, and you cannot determine any connection, any relation between the assailants and the victim from the post-mortem. Pat Brown 101. You can't. Because if I'm a serial killer, I might stab you 100 times. I might stab you just once. Whatever tickles my fancy. And that, unfortunately, is the reality. And anyhow, she was found, several miles away. She'd been murdered. I think she'd been stabbed. I could be wrong there. Maybe she was strangled. I can't even remember. Perhaps strangled, actually. But the point was that David Wilson said, well, she didn't have her clothes on her. Therefore, I believe it was a consensual act. And, this person picked her up and they went over here to this secluded place a few miles away in their car. And she consensually removed her clothes. And then she got murdered. It went bad halfway through the consensual act. Oh, come off it. Look, David Wilson, I'm sure he's a smart guy. And he's a nice guy. And I like his beard. He's got a nice beard. It's better than mine. But, no, I'm sorry. Do you know anything about the military? You don't just go off. When the fucking wing commander has said, "You're babysitting my child tonight," that's not a request, that's an order. You get kicked out if you don't do that. And she was law-abiding. She was very much into the whole thing. She was seriously, a good girl. She would, if the wing commander says jump, she says how high to. That's how it was. The idea that someone would trick her into the car and say, "Hey, I'm taking you to the wing commanders," and then pull over, and then she starts having consensual sex? No. Absolute nonsense. And this is the problem with people like this, like David Wilson. They've never done anything wrong. They've never strayed the other side of the line. They've never pulled a gun on someone. They've pulled a knife on someone. They've never scored Not to say I have, obviously, but had I done, I would know that he's talking absolute crap. But you don't do that. This good girl does not do that. And that is my first problem with Dave Wilson, that he's not a very good criminologist, because you have two prongs, right, to when you're looking at a crime. You have victimology, so you look into the victim, everything about them. And then you have suspectology, and you look into everything about the suspect. And then I guess the third thing, if we're going to have a third prong, even though I said there are into, the third one is obviously the crime scene. But let's just look from a detective. Let's say it's a cold case where you only have the victimology, we have the suspectology. You look into the victim. She's a really well-behaved young lady who is following all the rules of the military. Is she really... Let's say the dude does trick her into the car and she goes off with him. Within 2 seconds, it's like, are we going to the wing commander's house? I need to babysit. I'm going to get a bollocking if I don't babysit. I'm going to be kicked out if I don't babysit. The idea, it's actually risible. The idea that she would then start getting it on her removing clothes. No. And the only reason that David Wilson said that it must have been consensual was because there was no evidence of her undergarments being torn. Well, I am not a violent person, I'm not a rapist or a murderer, but if I had a knife or a gun and I said to a girl, you better get your fucking clothes off, otherwise I'm going to kill you, they would get their clothes off. I would say it like I mean it. Even though obviously I never do that. And it's obvious that you just scare and intimidate a poor, vulnerable victim who you've abducted into removing their clothes. And that is why half of them are removed without any damage. It does not mean, and it's disparaging to the victim, it's an insult to her to say that she's like, I'm going to go off and have sex with this random dude. No, it's an insult. And it's also an insult, but I can't remember her name, because I watched this documentary a week or two ago, and I've only started doing videos tonight. And that's one reason why I can't stand the dude. But secondly, we all remember the murder of Sarah Everard, where it was a corrupt Met police officer who used the lockdown legislation to abduct her. And we all know about that. We were not going to go into that whole scamdemic and all that crap. But he misused the legislation, as many have done. People have misused it for so many different reasons. But sadly, he misused it for the worst. And that cop misused it to abduct Sarah Everard and took her away and raped her, most disgusting. And I believe he burned her body even, And thankfully he was caught because of the mobile phone evidence. It's funny, actually. I'm not a cop and I'm not a criminal. But I'd have the sense to, not take her phone with me, because, you have your phone and you have her phone and they both go through the same masts, and it's synchronicity, they go through the same masts. And someone's like, well, that dude's obviously in your car because you're all going through it. It amazes me how dumb people are. If I had done that crime, hey, I wouldn't have taken my phone. I'd have left it at home on autoplay on something, so it looks like I'm watching YouTube all evening, and I certainly would have searched her pockets after I abducted her. But thankfully, I'm not a criminal. But anyhow, and he did that. He abducted her, burnt her body, raped her, whatnot. David Wilson came out and said something like, it's shocking. I'm not going to do a Scottish accent because I'm too stoned, but if I was less stoned, maybe I'd have a go. But he basically, he was like, oh, it's shocking, the violence that men inflict on women. The whole Me Too movement is such a great thing. We need to have more of that, because all these men, they just want to fucking rape girls and fuck them in the arse and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, no, I'm a normal human being. I only fuck girls in the arse that I actually fancy and is consensual. And this freaking bitch, David Wilson, comes out with like, that's normal. He's like, oh, all the men do that, and we need to clamp down on them. And we need to like have a curfew, and maybe men shouldn't come out after 8 p.m. at night. And it's amazing, but I actually was talking about this on a few chats on like a few social media sites, and you'd be amazed how many people think that that is okay, that to say that all of us are like rapists, and we all want to abduct girls and have forced sexual intercourse on them and all this crap. And yeah, and David Wilson apparently subscribes to that apparently we're all guilty, not including him, obviously, because the way he says it, he's obviously aloof from all that. But it's absolute crap. No. If a dude is a rapist, send him to jail for the rest of his life. Maybe cut off his balls. Do whatever you have to do. That dude's a rapist. We don't like him. He's a scumbag. But don't tar me with that brush. It's not my fault I was born with an X and a Y chromosome. It doesn't make me a rapist. That's my thoughts, man.